to the Q&A portion of our program, where we'll ask April and Juanis some clarifications on their presentation, as well as to get some of the advanced questions later on for our Q&A. Sige, I'd like to shoot the first question, April. No? Ano muna? Wag muna tong advanced questions natin. Ano muna? Let's start first. I just have a few questions muna, and then let's look at the advanced question. April, just one lang muna. You said that the earnings growth this year is vulnerable to downgrade. How bad could it be? Pinakita ka mga different different scenarios. And will that extend to next year, 2023?
How bad will it be? I don't know. Hindi, pero that said, that's why we provided the sensitivity analysis.
Okay.
So do you believe that it will exceed the parang 18% downgrade yata on the earnings forecast, to the point that the earnings this year will be worse than last year, which I believe is a little bit stretched or OA naman, di ba? Because, I mean, anecdotally, when you go out, you see demand is there, no? Pero probably, as long as we don't have a serious surge that our hospitals again will be overwhelmed, that we have to do a lockdown, I think today is better than last year. Even with higher commodity price, but even with the higher commodity prices, at least now there are signs that commodity prices have peaked. So if I own a business, then I want to pass on the higher cost. Parang may baseline na ako eh. I know how much I need to pass. And maybe if I pass on those costs, maybe I do a 3% this year, another 3% next year, then I'm done, di ba? Unlike if prices continue to go up, you don't even know, di ba, how bad it can be.
Yeah. Okay. Just na lang, si Juanis na lang, just one question kasi we're already at moving 5:35, but I guess we have a lot more questions for our audience. Juanis, I just want to ask, in this down market, how can you make money? Di ba? How can we make money here? Downtrend line.
Well, in a downtrend, you only make pockets of money here, and only when you see exaggerated conditions being tossed down. So you try taking advantage of oversold conditions, and when it rallies back to resistance, then you liquidate there. And right now, that's all the market can offer you until a major reversal comes in. So here, you have to be satisfied with small gains over time. It cannot be monumental gains because we don't see that coming just yet.
Technically, so watch this, you call it capitulation?
Yes, capitulation. So you see very sharp declines that can come off maybe sometimes of panic or some emotional pieces of news that may come out to drive prices and overbought conditions.
Okay, all right, sige. Thank you. I think you already also showed some tactical strategies earlier that the audience can look at again. All right, sige, let's look at the advanced questions. Let's take them up one by one. On macroeconomic outlook, question by Chloe: what is the likelihood of a global recession and what will be its effect on the Philippine economy? April, take this.
Okay, so global recession, well, ganito na lang. Let me just rephrase the question. What is the likelihood of a recession in the US versus a recession in the Philippines? Ganun na lang. Di ba? Kasi yun naman ang relevant sa atin. Well, if you ask me, I think the likelihood of a recession in the US is much greater than it is in the Philippines. Simply because I think, first of all, the US stimulated the economy more than they did the Philippines. That's one thing. Remember, so our BSP also cut rates. Tapos si Fed nag-cut, diba? Tapos nag-QE sila. Wala naman tayong QE dito masyado, diba? And then secondly, what kind of ayudas did they give, diba? I mean, I'm sure you all read how some Americans were better off when there was a lockdown, which is why the demand for, diba, for goods shot up. during the pandemic, and that was what really caused all this inflation, because of the pandemic you had this supply bottlenecks, and the demand was so strong, no? And dito naman sa Philippines, I mean, not everybody got an ayuda, diba? And even though interest rates were low, you try to borrow money from the bank, they don't lend you money. So wala siyang parang ganung bubble. And then I think about it, last year, the US got the vaccines ahead of everybody else. So they opened up ahead of everybody else. So, tayo this year pa lang tayo magre-recover. Paano ba tayo? Diba? Parang, there's no froth. So in that respect, I don't think that we will have a recession, or it's going to be worse this year than it was last year. I think things are better this year, and it's very hard to have a recession simply because we are coming from such a low base.
In other words, April, mag-recession sila, it's not necessarily that we will go into recession also, di ba? Para we're reopening na tayo eh.
I think it's more of the growth will slow down because yun na nga eh, yung imbis na and yun na nga kasi imbis na, 'di ba, usually when you're recovering, mura yung prices of oil, raw materials, because demand is still weak. Yun lang, unfortunately we don't have that condition right now, and interest rates aren't low because the banks have to raise rates because the BSP is raising rates, and inflation is high.
April, ito na lang. Pag nag-recession sila, bababaan rates, bababaan oil. O, hindi okay sa atin. Diba?
Definitely. Oo.
Okay pa sa atin.
That would benefit us. Oo.
Yeah, okay. Sige, itong susunod na question ni Grace. How long, alam ba natin to, how long will the global inflation take place? Pero patapos na yata eh, di ba?
I think it's well, maybe you will still see the elevated numbers, but what I would focus more on is the month-on-month increase, no? Kasi may mga base effects pa yan, but I think maybe on a month-on-month, we may see some slowing down, which should be viewed favorably, no?
Mga kailan yan? Mga fourth quarter siguro.
Baka, oo.
Baka or early next.
And yun na nga, we might see some a little bit of a pick up pa rin kasi you will see some businesses trying to pass on some of the high costs, diba? But that said, the pace should slow down, and I think let's not be too fixated on the headline numbers. Alam mo, yung isang interesting thing also to see is what will happen if demand really weakens. Kasi I remember like watching this, yun nga, mga videos of analysts from the US, and they talk about, for example, in the US, diba, the inflation is so high, but if you look at the goods sector, humihina na yung inflation because what is happening is the Americans, for example, right now, because inflation is so high, nauuso na rin yung shifting of spending to essentials. So hindi na sila bumibili ng furniture, ng mga
discretionary spending. Mga discretionary spending.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So what's happening is, so they ask the retailers, so what's the plan? Are you just gonna hold on to your inventory? Kasi nagkakaroon na ng inventory glut doon. Are you gonna hold on to your inventory and wait until the buyers will come back and they buy your goods? Sabi nila hindi, kailangan mag-sale. So nagkakaroon ng ganong angle because they also have to raise capital. So it will be interesting to see how fast inflation will go down if our retailers will cut prices, if let's say the demand weakens, to raise funds or capital.
Okay, sige, let's go for the next group of questions from the advanced questions sent by our audience. Government naman. With the new government, how do you see the markets in 2023? Asked by Ramon. April.
Well, so far, at least the economic managers that were appointed, I would say, are all highly qualified, and parang Team Philippines talaga eh. Wala yung political loyalties, diba? So for me, that's very good. They know what they're doing. They know what the problems are. But unfortunately, I think because of the high debt levels, high deficit levels, in some ways, the government's hands are tied. So baka yun lang, the ability to pump prime is limited because of that. So I think, yeah, I mean, right now I'm interested to see if the government can really do what it says it will do, which is to improve efficiency in tax collections. Kasi yun ang sabi nila, we're not gonna implement new taxes. If ever they do, maliliit lang naman eh.
Pero
But
ito
that,
how markets niya for 2023 tanong niya ni Ramon. The market, it will affect market trend kaya.
for me, not so much naman. Not so much. Parang hindi na masyado na pag-uusapan ngayon yan eh, di ba? Kasi so far naman, I mean, they've been saying the right things, I think.
Okay.
And prioritizing agriculture, I think, is a good thing. And they're
Ito.
talking.
Ito, tanong ni Patrick about mining industry. Are they favorable to mining?
Much favorable, I would say. Diba, they're now allowing open pit mining again, diba? Kasi they kind of realize that's one way by which they can generate more tax revenues.
Yeah. But we'll
So
wait.
yeah.
There's a new DNR secretary. We have to see. Sige. Next group of questions. Let's try to shorten our answers para mabilis tayo. Meron pang maraming questions. On the stock market, what indicators, if any, should we look out for to signal the bear market is ending? By Erwin. Juanis, take it.
But I did mention earlier on, I would say two or three. One, downtrend line breaks on the index. Two, if we can see a golden cross, that means your 50-day moving average climbing above the 200-day moving average. And maybe the earliest would be either double bottoms, W's, or higher lows. I mean, those are the things that I will watch out for first.
Okay, watch out for that. As asked by Joseph, how will Dennis Uy versus BDO issue impact his stocks? So yung mga Dennis Uy stocks, April. I guess
I think binentahan na. Oo. So I guess that's it. I think the ability maybe for them to borrow more will be a lot more challenging at this point. So it's not good for companies.
Yep. All right, sige. Next group of questions, let's take it up. Sector naman, asked by Michael, in this difficult situation, are there sectors that can thrive even in the market conditions are this poor? Juanis, para bang may pinakita ka mga good sectors din kanina?
Yeah, I think you'll have to take this bottom up, right? I mean, you cannot generalize on the sector because it really depends on how the company's strategy can work itself out. Some of them might have some strategic advantages, and that can be helpful, right? And but for example, in a case like Semirara, since they're in a commodity base and coal seems to be the highest price commodity, they can still be very benefit. But not all mining companies are the same because you can have some that are copper based or gold based, and you have those mining companies still falling down. So you really have to take this a company at a time, not so much as the sector. Although I think April has favorite sectors, maybe.
Yeah, April. Any sectors? Any sectors?
Power sector, because we know naman, for example, right now that the power demand is already back to pre-pandemic. And next year, medyo tight ang power supply. So one of the things happening is high OSM prices. So that means that your excess capacity you sell in the wholesale electricity spot market and you can get a good price. And then yung mga excess capacity mo mas nabebenta ngayon. So that should be good for the power sector. And then the telcos, relatively resilient demand. And of course, the mga broadband. Tuloy-tuloy pa rin naman. So now the strength on the broadband, I mean, the residential sector is still there, but because of the reopening, even their business sector, the enterprise sector is doing quite well. So parang there's this long-term digitization trend na nagbe-benefit sa mga telcos. So I don't think that's going to change regardless of what happens. So, and of course, the REITs. I think REITs in general, for everybody. Kasi, yun nagbibigay sila ng cash dividend. So, it really is a very rare opportunity that you can buy income producing assets at these levels na you get dividends of say 6 to 7%. Diba? Dati parang ang baba kasi ng interest rate ngayon lang tumaas. So I think we should take advantage of it.
Yeah, speaking of REITs, no, I think the second group of questions, can you flash that up? I think they're asking about REITs also. I guess the question is, at rising interest rates, is it good to be in REITs as Portland?
Yeah, so that's one of the risks we were talking about last year, no, nung sikat na sikat yung mga REITs. Kasi di ba REITs, pataas ng pataas yung presyo. So, di ba, when we talked about REITs, it's one of the things we talked about. In a rising interest rate environment, REITs would be negatively affected. And true enough, they were negatively affected. But then again, we are already seeing interest rates go down, and there is a strong likelihood that they will not be as high as they used to be, because there are already indicators that, commodity prices are falling, and interest rates in the US, in the secondary market, are going down due to rising concerns of a recession already.
Yeah.
So, di ba nga na-mention mo nga, ang 10-year bond rate ng Philippines from a peak of 7 plus.
Yeah.
It's now at mga 6.1, no?
6.1, yeah. Right. So, pero April, global REITs. Alam mo, kasi the reason I'm saying that, we have a fund in the platform na global REITs. Pwede rin kaya?
I think pwede. Sana lang, okay. Kasi, like personally, if let's say my banker will recommend like a REIT fund, I look at the members din. Kasi, ang style ngayon, when you're looking at bond funds, you wanna go more for investment grade rating funds. You don't wanna go to yung mga junk bonds or, di ba?
Hindi, REIT fund siya, April. REIT fund.
Pag REITs, titignan mo rin yung laman ng mga REITs na nasa loob. Kung okay ba. Kasi may mga REIT funds na infra yung laman. I would think those are better rather than say REITs na mas housing, no? So, ayun, medyo tignan lang natin ng konti yung mga members, no? Kasi we want REITs that are more defensive.
Sige. Anyway, we have fact sheets there. Tingnan nyo na sa aming website. All right. Sige. Do we have another group of questions? Portfolio management, asked by Joselito. What is the best strategy today? Deploy now or wait for the reversal? Juanis, take it.
Okay, so again, I cannot cast that as a balloon strategy for all stocks because it has to be very stock dependent, right? And if you're looking into the technicals, I have to see some technical recoveries show in order, or at least some basing sign shows before I can do your deploy now. Because if I do, I will only do the deploy now if I already start seeing some signals that are getting a bit more firm. So waiting for reversal, yes, you can also do that. On the only problem, when we actually confirm reversal, medyo may rally na yung market.
Too late.
So you might, I wouldn't say too late, but you're not going to get a very good price. Right? Because you might be able to get a little bit more upside, but you will meet a lot of the meat there. So the way I would do it is if you see the double bottoms, you see the chances or divergences showing, then maybe you can start deploying some. And then when you see clear evidence of reversal, then you can add. I would rather do it that way.
Yeah. Related to, tinatanong ni Luis, buy on dip or sell on rallies, still advisable? Or
that's absolutely yes. I would say absolutely yes. Until we get out of a downtrend, that's what I'm following. So I'll be following you, Luis.
Yeah. You have already the cheat sheet there. Meron na siyang Luis, meron na yung pinakita si Juanis earlier. May cheat sheet na siya. Ano yung buy and hold? Ano yung, di ba? I think you already have that. Good. All right. Sige, let's maybe get a couple of questions or more in the live. Kasi ang sipag na ng mga analysts natin, they're answering a lot of questions already. But baka there might be some live questions that we want to take up in this in this session. Ladies at the back, do we have some live questions that you want to bring up here? Oh, ito na nga yun. Why did JG Summit dispose Meralco shares? Oh, asked by Antonio. April.
Well, I can only suspect, no, but speculate. Well, first of all, I think the price naman of Meralco is not that cheap, no. I wouldn't say it's expensive really, but it's not that cheap either. Secondly, as far as JG Summit is concerned, their Meralco shares are, kumbaga, they're a minority shareholder. So for them, it's easier to exit a position in the company where you are not naman the majority shareholder. So, and then of course, maybe they need the funds for their own companies where they are majority shareholders, diba? Na that are still needing funds right now. For example, you would have Cebu Pacific na tinatamaan ng high oil prices, diba? And the weak peso, or you would also have some other JGS stocks na mura. Oo.
Pero but there's nothing wrong naman with Meralco. That's why they're selling. Wala naman.
Wala naman.
Yeah.
No.
Yes. Sure. All right. Sige. One more question. Let's get a couple more kung meron pa. Dami na nasagot sa Q&A kanina. I can see it. But I know from Danilo P. Any speculative stocks that you can recommend? Si HP, Raslag, Fruit Web, OPM. Juanis, meron ba tayo?
Thank you for the one. Some of these guys did some significant rallies like CHP. Some of the other ones like Flag is still consolidating. Web also came from a major rally. So one little lesson, okay? I mean, if you're even going to dare buy these issues, my basic problem here is volume can contract, and they contract so much that the stock can literally whip back to where they've come from, right? So when you're moving into this, it's purely extremely short term. You buy it the minute it stops climbing, you're out, because you cannot afford to wait for this to go back down. And who knows, wait a couple of months. Some issues might even take a couple of years before they rebound again. So please, you're just punting in this, okay? This is not something I would take as longer than what I should be.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna ask this from April kasi ayaw mo naman speculative stocks, right, April?
Oo.
Okay. Sige. All right. Maybe let's have one more from Hans. What's the reason behind the unusual reaction of U.S. market yesterday after the Fed raised again the interest by 75 basis points? Is it a good sign that the market participants are already anticipating a bottoming out and bullish moving forward? April, iba daw yung reaction ng US market.
Oo, kasi 'di ba, usually pagka nag-raise rates dapat negative, bakit naging positive? 'Di ba? Yeah, so I think first of all, the Fed has been telegraphing a 75 basis point rate hike, which is why our BSP, even before nag-raise ng 75, inunahan na, off-cycle nag-raise. So I think the market was already anticipating that 75 basis point rate hike. But I think more importantly is, di ba, what they said is that, we won't make any more forward guidance, di ba? So in other words, parang baka lumalambot na rin sila. Na in the future, they might not be raising rates as aggressively. Yeah, because I think the market was anticipating, diba, after the 75, there will be 2 more 50 basis point rate hikes. Yeah. But because of the important indicators that came out, like we talked about the flash PMI being below 50, and other indicators, like I think the labor, meron din silang pinag-usapan, the non-farm payrolls, and then the household employment, etc., medyo may signs of weakness na rin. So may mga ganun silang tinitignan na, oops, parang may signs na talaga na humihina. Yeah, and the second quarter GDP came out, remember?
Yeah, negative.
A contraction.
Negative 0.9? Is it negative 0.9?
Basta negative siya.
Kahapon lang nilabas eh.
So I think yeah, maybe I think the Fed has to show that they are, fighting inflation still, but 'di ba, maybe they are seeing signs that, oh, it's working. I think we've done enough, but they just can't
Yeah,
admit it,
yeah.
'di ba?
So classic example to April na it's already in the price. Kung
Yeah.
ano kumbaga, discounted na. So nung
Oo.
buy on news, sell on, parang paano ba yan?
Oh, yes.
Sell on news, buy on rally. Ay, ano ba yan? Basta ganun.
Oo.
Na-anticipate na. So nung dumating na, tapos na.
Oo.
That's right. That's right. Tayo
Tapos
kaya,
na.
paano kaya tayo? Paano kaya sa atin? Mag-akyat kaya si BSP na 75 basis ulit?
Ewan ko. Baka 25. Sinabi naman nila, di ba? Hindi, magtataas pa kami. Di ba? Gumanon sila. Maybe,
Yeah.
give it another 25 or 50, Di ba? Para lang not left behind.
We were slower than the Fed.
Yeah.
But I mean, think about it. If they raise interest rates by 50 basis points, but they cut the triple Rs by 2%, the offset, di ba? They still can do that. They talked about cutting the triple Rs to below 10%, which is still above 10 at this point, di ba?
Yeah, that's right. Maganda yung chart mo doon, Juanis, yung ano di ba? I mean, the 10-year bonds of the US already crossed the Fed funds.
Yeah, I think that should explain a lot, because the 10-year yield in the US is telling you what the market wants as an expectation, right? At this rate, they feel they can manage even that high level of inflation. And so now with the Fed pushing it all the way up there, so it's meeting what the market is desiring in terms of that recommended interest rate level. So above that would be a stretch. So that's why, like April said, maybe the aggressiveness should get toned down. And that invertedly why the market felt a little bit bullish, despite the increasing of rates and despite the recessionary threat, because now I think this is your second quarter of negative GDP. Am I right, April?
Yes, second quarter.
Yeah. Okay. So they are in a technical recession.
All right, it's already 6 o'clock, so medyo lumaba na tayo. But before we end, maybe I'll ask you some last few words or last few guidance to our viewers today. April, I'll start with you, and then Juanis.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, I'd reiterate now, although I'm an equities analyst, I think it's a good time to buy bonds, lock in those high rates, because we might not see them anymore. If you're an equity investor, I will, well, of course, I like REITs and I like proper power defensive telcos. But if you're a long-term investor, I think it's a good time to start with your peso cost averaging. So that when it's a bull market, hindi ka maiwanan, may hawak ka. But then again, I don't know when it will happen. It would just be good to buy a little bit. With money you can afford to keep for a long time.
Yeah. Okay, money you can keep for a long time. Thank you for that, April. Juanis, last few guidance.
All right. I guess my comments are geared more for the active investor or to the tactical investor. And I would say take this recovery or what we're seeing a potential of one step at a time. Let's not get too much ahead of ourselves, because we're still in a declining market, and a lot still has to be done to release us from this. We do have headwinds that we have to be able to take up as a challenge, and there could be potential whipbacks. And because of this, just take advantage of when prices pull back and rebound after that, rather than chasing prices. You don't want to be chasing prices in this market right now. Can you trade large caps or mid caps? Yes. I don't think you should close your doors, but please, like I said, make sure volumes are very friendly to you. To me, I'm very particular about that. I mean, I don't mind looking at small caps, but if there's no volume, I wouldn't even bother to trade them. So please make sure the volumes that they trade are friendly to you, that's easy for you to get in or to be able to get out. And yes, go ahead, take advantage of the rallies that can come out. You might have to be lightning fast in some cases, but to me, an opportunity is an opportunity. So keep your eyes and fingers open in case we see wider prospects for it.
All right, keep your eyes wide open and watch the market carefully for these opportunities. Thank you very much, April, and thank you very much, Juanis, for this very
Welcome.
informative session with you. We'll
Thank you as
see
well,
you
Marvin.
again probably in our market briefing sometime in December or January. Right? Thank you, guys. Let me try to end this and put everything together for you, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, based on the latest survey for your sentiment survey, retail investors are turning more neutral in their views, which I think is consistent with what April and Juan is saying. Top concerns kasi is the inflation, increasing interest rates, and the global slowdown. But people are still looking to increase investments, particularly in local and global funds, as well as bonds for higher yields for diversification on top of their investments in equities. So April shared that the worst may soon be over as some commodity prices are peaking and central banks are collectively acting by increasing policy rates to combat inflation. But risks continue due to the weakening of effects of consumer demand that could hurt corporate profits and further dampen sentiment, keeping markets weak. Juanis' interpretation of the charts also show that the downtrend is still intact. So what do we do? How do we invest in this difficult second half? Well, have a defensive portfolio. Fixed income, bonds, and REITs would offer better potential for yields. For your stock portfolio, stay with the large cap names in the power and telco sector and consider accumulating on price weakness, especially with those strong balance sheets and those that pay dividends. Consider diversifying in global funds as well. For traders out there, short-term rallies may be an opportunity to lighten up, as Juanis has explained. Maybe for some of you who believe that there's too much risk in their portfolio, might be a good time to top slice. And it's interesting also that Juanis gave us some tactical guides to catch the opportunities presented through this market's volatility despite this downtrending line of the charts. It is important to remember, ladies and gentlemen, that what our speakers presented today is a snapshot of where we possibly are in the cycle. Markets, as you know, move in cycles. It goes up and down in cycles. And where we are today appears to be the downtrending towards the lower end of the cycle. And history has shown us that during this downtrend, when the markets are low, where people make more as far as returns are concerned. And we might already be seeing some flicker of light at the end of the tunnel, but the risks that are being faced by the economies, by the corporates in terms of downgrades, the tunnel that the light at the end of the tunnel might be there, but the tunnel could be long and could be dark. So we just have to be patient. We just have to continue managing our risks with a defensive and diversified portfolio, as we have shared with you today. So I hope we have given you ideas on how you can ride this difficult second half. But with all that, I'd like to thank you all for watching. Once again, this has been Marvin Fausto. We would like to see you again in our next briefing. Bye.